And welcome to another episode of the Kam Johal Show, where we bring you inspiring guests within our own community and sometimes not in our own community. Today we have a very, very interesting and important issue to talk about. And as you know, we try and push the boundaries of what we are prepared to discuss and what we're not prepared to discuss. Because one of the things that our community is very good at is shying away from those controversial issues. And it's understandable because they're very, very difficult to deal with. So today my guest is a graduate of San Francisco University. It's a very, very illustrious career. And we're very, very privileged to have him on the show today. So welcome to my guest, Indrajit Singh Vogal. Welcome, Indrajit.
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਭਾਜੀ
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ ਜੀ ਆਇਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ
ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ
ਐਨੀ ਟਾਈਮ KTV ਦਾ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਜੀ
KTV ਦਾ ਹਾਂਜੀ
So ਭਾਜੀ your career you graduated in San Francisco
ਹਾਂਜੀ
so ਉੱਥੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਗਏ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਵਾਪਸ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਆਏ
Great question. I was as an IT consultant, so I got an opportunity to have some work in San Francisco. As a result of that, I seemed to have just settled, and I asked my mom and dad, "Menu kam na San Francisco mil raha hai," and they said, "Tu ja ke fir to te it's okay." मैं क्या तुसी मेनू चाहते नहीं मैं घर रवां नहीं they said तुसी जाके दुनिया देख अपनी तरक्की कर and so I settled in San Francisco. फिर उधर बाद in my IT work I would be jet setting from one city to the next every week, but there came a point when I realized कि जेड़ा मेरा असली काम है ना, maybe it's not sitting with computers because that wasn't calling me as much. फिर मैंने पता लगा नहीं it was I was good at it, that's why I was doing it, but it wasn't my true calling. इस करके फिर मैं की किता मैं फिर सलाह कर ली कि I'll go back to university, do my psychology and do my leadership and well-being coaching training. I got my certification, accreditation with the International Coach Federation. And then I started working for companies in the field of transformation. There's a company called Landmark Education that I worked for in San Francisco. And then I created my own company called the Vision Works Group. As I was working with my own university, John F. Kennedy University professors, होया कि मैनू खबर आ गई कि मेरे वड्डे भाजी ठीक नहीं हैगे. So I had to go back to England, and as a result of that I looked after my brother as much as I could, along with my family, but then also माता पिता हुण बिरध हो रहे सीगे उन्हां दी सेवा भी करनी सी. जेड़ा मेरा वड्डा भाजी सी, he was a primary carer. So what happened is he passed away. So I took on the responsibility of looking after my mum and dad. And what I realized is ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਘਰ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮਾਤਾ ਪਿਤਾ ਤੋਂ ਦੂਰ ਚਲ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ, when you go too far from your parents, ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਜੜ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ, ਉਹ ਰੂਟ ਹੈਗਾ ਨਾ, ਉਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਮਿਸ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ. ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਪਵਨ ਗੁਰੂ ਪਾਣੀ ਪਿਤਾ ਮਾਤਾ ਧਰਤ ਮਹਤ, ਹਨਾ. ਮਾਤਾ ਧਰਤੀ ਆ, ਹਨਾ. and ਜਿਹੜਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਆ ਉਹ ਪਵਨ ਦਿਵਸ ਰਾਤ ਦੋ ਦਾਈ ਦਾ ਖੇਲੇ ਸਗਲ ਜਗਤ. What I did then is I realized ਕਿ ਮਾਤਾ ਪਿਤਾ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਲਾਗੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਹੋਣੀ ਆ. So ਮੈਂ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਛ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਪਾਸੇ ਕਰਕੇ I gave up San Francisco and my life in America. ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ Birmingham ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਟਿਕ ਗਿਆ, settled there. It's very exciting because ਮਾਤਾ ਪਿਤਾ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕੋਈ ਕਰਮਾਂ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਦੀ ਹੈ, ਐਵੇਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲਦੀ, ਉਹ ਖਰੀਦ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ. ਸੋ ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਮਾਤਾ ਪਿਤਾ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕੀਤੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਜੋ ਕੁਛ ਹੁਣ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਨਾ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਹੈ. It's amazing, and I think that if you bypass mata pita to become successful, it will never ever work. ਮਾਤਾ ਪਿਤਾ ਦੀ ਆਸ਼ੀਰਵਾਦ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਚਰਨਾਂ ਦੇ 50 ਸਾਲ ਬਾਅਦ ਅਕਲ ਆਈ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਚਰਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਮੱਥਾ ਟੇਕਣਾ ਹੈ, ਹਨਾ. So in my life, I think in my travels, living on 3 continents in the world, because मेरा काम in East Asia भी होया, Singapore वगैरह, Indonesia विच, I found that ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਹੋਣੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤੇ, ਉਹ ਮਾਤਾ ਪਿਤਾ ਦੀ ਦਇਆ ਮਿਹਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੋਣੀ ਹੈ. Now the other thing is, in my travels ਬਹੁਤ ਗਲਤੀਆਂ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ, ਮੈਂ made a lot of mistakes. ਮੰਨਦੇ ਹੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ? हाँ जी, क्योंकि मेरे गुरु ने क्या हम मैले तुम उजल करते, हम निर्गुण तू दाता, हो दयाल नाम दियो मंगत जान को, सदा रहो रंगराता, हम मैले तुम उजल करते। पर असी कदे अपने आप नूं मैले कहंदे नहीं हां। Yeah. So the Guru says, and you notice that in the Guru Granth Sahib, the Guru isn't pointing a finger at us and saying, tu melaya. The Guru is saying, hum mele. We are full of flaws. Asi hum papi vad gunagar. Asi bahut paap kite ne. है ना, तू दया कर. We are the sinners. We have the sin. Collectively. Well, collectively and individually. है ना. So the problem is that human beings, we don't accept mistakes. We don't take responsibility. We don't accept that we made a mistake, and we never really know how to apologize properly. So I know that in my life, janbujh ke purposely I never hurt anybody. Sure. But pain can come from, being in relationships and being in work. These things can happen, and have happened. हाँ जी. Yes.
So move away from home.
Yes.
So you had that international career.
Yes.
Not only but to see
Birmingham to London चल गए. You were in San Francisco.
Right.
So what feelings did you have? Because कोई भी नहीं चाहता कि मुड़ के मैं उत्थे आ जावां. Because it feels like a bit of a backward step sometimes, especially if you go to one of the most fantastic cities in the world.
Yeah, from the Golden Gate Bridge to the Five Ways Canals at Birmingham, it's a big change.
It can be a little different, right? Yeah. So, agar koi, because this thing is coming to all of us. Right? So, sadde bacche 100 200 mil sometimes in different countries chal gaye apne paise kamaun waste for their careers. But we had a part to do that. We sponsored them in their education. We encouraged them to be ambitious. And why not? Right? But jadon circle wapas aandi sari, as your parents get older, you made the decision that, main wapas mud ke aa jana. Very courageous. What went through your mind?
What happened is, I think ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਨਾ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਰੱਬ ਦਾ ਹੁਕਮ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਤੂੰ ਹੁਣ ਸੈਨ ਫਰਾਂਸਿਸਕੋ ਰਹਿਣ ਦੇ, ਆ ਕੇ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰ ਆਪਣੇ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਆਪਣੇ ਮਾਤਾ ਪਿਤਾ ਦੀ, ਹਨਾ. There was a calling. There was a calling. Now you hear so many stories of people coming as builders from India, and they don't go to see their parents back again because they don't have the visa to go back and come back. So 12-15 ਸਾਲ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਮਾਤਾ ਪਿਤਾ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ. They don't see their parents. What happened for me is that I realized that you can still stay in touch with your parents ਚੰਗੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ. ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨਾ you start to live a wild life out and about, and you can even put ਸਿੱਖੀ to one side and say ਮੈਂ ਨਾ ਹੁਣ ਫਿਰਨਾ ਤੁਰਨਾ, ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇਖਣੀ ਆ, ਮਜ਼ੇ ਲੈਣੇ ਆ. ਉਹ ਵੀ ਇਨਸਾਨ ਨੂੰ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਆ, ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਉਹ ਜੇ ਨਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਬੰਦਾ ਸੋਚਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੀ. Missed out.
Yes.
I think it's very exciting that ਜਦੋਂ ਅਕਲ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਹਨਾ, and you have to grow up. You have to learn ਕਿ
become an adult.
You have to become an adult, but also I think that you have to stand in the truth. ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੱਚ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਖੜੇ, if we don't stand in the truth, nothing will work. None of the coaching would work. None of the seva with CKD International, the charity that I do seva with, that would not work, because o sara ahankar, home, ego, like pride, ego de naal o sara kuch kita janda hai. If it's done with pride, ego and home, it will not be sustainable. Odi qeemat nahi rehni hai. So the thing is, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਲਾਲਚ ਆ ਨਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਿੱਚ, the greed, I want to become more well known, I want to become famous, I want people to know how changa, how good I am. These things will always damage the results of what we create.
Is that greed or ego? What drives that?
I think that ego itself is very important. I mean, bande di identity, robe, shob hona chahiye hai.
Yes, that's personality.
Personality should be there. But jedi pride ego, negative ego hai, that is very damaging, because everything that we do, every relationship we create, sanbandh jinne bhi hege a, agar o lalach, home, hankar, ego nal create kitte a, if they're created with those things, they will always suffer. Every relationship. However, we don't get taught relationship building in school.
Not at all.
You know, like that Suman gentleman on the program said,
Yeah.
he said, we don't get taught about business development with truth and honesty.
Not at all.
Sacha tolna, sacha sauda karna,
Yeah.
wo sanu sikhaya nahi janda hega.
Okay.
That comes a lot from the parents, the role models, the elder brothers, the uncles, like in your life, how your uncles helped you and
Absolutely.
made you who you are today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That sat sangat, if that isn't found.
But we're losing that though,
Yeah.
aren't we? Because, you know, the thing is that we're getting a lot of influence. Because if you go to the East, it's not just India, the elder generation is revered and respected,
Yes.
right? What we see here is older people ridiculed.
Hanji.
And people, especially older people living on their own, kids come and smash their windows and vandalise their houses and assault them when they're out on the street. So we have a totally different, at contrast idea of how older people should be treated.
Right.
Right? And of course, the longer we as a community spend in this country, the more influence we get, thinking that that's the normal role model.
Right.
So tusi gal kiti si peri hath launa. Right? When I came from India, I was 10 years old. So my grandmother said, beta, jinu merna, one of the peri hath launa.
Hanji.
Everybody in this country thought it was really funny. They found it hilarious
Yes.
that I would do this.
Yes.
So it's taken me this long to have the confidence to do that again.
Take it.
Because now I don't care what anybody thinks.
That's fantastic.
So the way jitna si respect show karte hain, somebody that's older than you, the godi hath laata, peri hath laata. But that's not what the West teaches, is it? So how do we preserve the real values that we have?
It's a great question. And I think that it leads in really to Kam Paji, it leads into कि actually साडी इज्जत पहला तो साडे अपने आप दे नाल नहीं हैगी.
Self-respect.
We don't have self-respect and honor and love for ourselves. किन्ने client मेरे, when I'm coaching them, I ask them, Benji, by the way, can I ask you a question? Do you love yourself? And she says, no, I hate myself.
Yeah, we had that conversation when we met last
Hanji,
time. Absolutely, it's so important.
Hanji. And I ask her, Fib, why are you forcing your husband to love you when you don't even love yourself? So, वो जेड़ा मन तो जोत स्वरूप है, inside you there's the jyot. You are the image of the light. You are image of Paramatma. मन तो जोत स्वरूप है, अपना मूल पहचान, recognize your root, your source. तुसी किथों आए हैं?
Interesting. Well, that leads us very nicely to the topic that we want to discuss. Right. So we started on relationships. So, you know, what Indrajit Bhaji is saying is if you don't love yourself, how on earth can you expect anybody else to love you? So that's the starting point of life, right?
Hanji.
Self-love, self-respect,
Hanji.
and being an adult.
Hanji.
So in our community, because obviously you deal with a lot of people in our community and your business is actually called Seek Coaching.
Hanji.
So domestic violence. You know, and there was a massive upsurge during the pandemic. What is your experience of domestic violence? What causes it, and how can we stop it?
Right. It's very difficult. Relationships are very, very, very difficult.
They're complicated, aren't they?
They're very complicated,
Yes.
no matter who they are. And by the way, har ek ghar de vich kalesh, conflict, disputes hunde ne.
Yes, of course.
You know? And because of that reason, because relationships have complexity, जे बंदे दी अपनी इज्जत प्रेम अपने आप दे नाल अपनी आइडेंटिफिकेशन नहीं हुई हैगी ते फिर the development happens in the relationship. So ਜਦੋਂ ਸਾਡਾ ਆਨੰਦ ਕਾਰਜ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ, in that relationship ਆਦਮੀ ਤੀਮੀ, the husband and wife have to build and develop until death do us part. Unfortunately, ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ promise ਹੈਗਾ till death do us part, ਉਹ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਇਨਸਾਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਹਿ ਸਕਦਾ.
No,
it's very difficult to accomplish.
Well, the other thing is that if you use logic and think about these things,
Yes.
so our religion is 500 odd years old, right?
Yes.
So if you start thinking about that, 500 years ago, life expectancy was somewhere around 45 to 50.
Yes.
right? Even at the turn of the century, in this country, the life expectancy was 47 years of age.
Unless you were a Baba Buddha.
Right? Right?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, but mythical figures aside.
Yes.
Right? You and me,
on average,
we would have been buried for a long time now.
Yeah, we would have.
Right? So you get married at 18, 19, 17 or whatever it is. And, and by the time you're 50, you're gone. And the mortality rates were much higher. So the number of people that died even before that was much higher than they are today. So the average marriage now, I celebrated my in-laws' 60th wedding anniversary of a few months back. Beautiful party. My mother-in-law and father-in-law. But that was unheard of. People didn't live to 60. Let alone being married for 60 years.
Yes.
So that has, when you say death do us part, well, death came about 40 years earlier.
And now,
only 100 years ago, right?
And now people are getting married at 40 and being forced to get married because they don't want to.
No.
And this
tell me about domestic violence.
Right.
So where does it stem from?
Right. What happens, therefore, is sometimes when we see domestic violence, often we see that either the husband or the wife has addictions.
Mm-hmm.
They might have alcohol addiction, they might have gambling addiction, they might have sex addiction, they might have all sorts of drug addictions.
Yeah.
What then happens is when the relationship is not fulfilled, आदमी तिवी दी बनदी नहीं आ, अनबन हो जाती है. The people that suffer most are the children.
Yes.
They start to think, why is mum and dad not getting on?
Mm-hmm.
Why are they sleeping in separate bedrooms?
Mm-hmm.
What is going on? And when I go to coach these families, the children think it's a joke because they don't see that anything's going to change. Mom and dad have been separate for a long time, living in the same house, fighting with each other. And after 3 sessions of Sikh coaching, they're together. They're united.
Mm-hmm.
And the children can't believe, Mom, why are you so nice to Daddy? Why are you hugging Daddy? You've never hugged him before. What's going on?
Yeah. Where does it? That's the aftermath. So we've had domestic violence,
right? So
or separation. You come in,
and very important.
What caused it in the first place?
What's very important to realize is that when there's no fulfillment in the relationship,
mm-hmm.
then hidden underneath the skin of the woman and the man is मैं खुश नहीं हैगी, मैं खुश नहीं हैगा. And when the complaint isn't, when there's no truth told, काते नहीं खुश हैगे, right? तू भांडे नहीं धोंदी, तू साफ नहीं करदी, सफाई नहीं करदी, तू बच्चे नहीं सामदी, and the woman says, you're not working hard enough, why don't you bring more money in, साडा सारा ठीक नहीं हुंदा काम. Then domestic violence can begin. Now, and also very, very clearly, sometimes the domestic violence doesn't always come from the man to the woman.
Well, I was going to point that out, that ਆਪਾਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਨਾ, the way we think domestic violence to be, the man is the abuser. It's not always the case. There's plenty of cases now where the woman is abusing the husband.
Yes.
But look, we have issues. And relationship issues, we have business issues, they happen all the time. So in a business environment, which is where I've been for 30 years, if I have a disagreement, I don't suddenly start beating up my opposition number.
Yeah.
What triggers? Because I don't think there's any excuse to lift a finger against your partner.
Right.
I understand culturally, husbands and wife, they're living under the same roof, or financially, they can't separate, so they have separate lives. I understand all those things, right? But what I don't understand is why one party thinks it's okay to strike out physically against the other party, whether it's the man against the woman or the woman against the man.
So let's look at this. Because one thing to realize is every human being is different.
Mm-hmm.
One human being doesn't understand the other human being.
Yeah.
ਜਦੋਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ mental health issue ਹੁੰਦਾ ਨਾ, ਇੱਕੋ ਹੀ ਨਾੜੀ ਮਾੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ different ਹੋਵੇ ਦਿਮਾਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੇ a child that, for instance, has like Down syndrome or some other problem like that, they can go and reach to the hair of the teacher and pull the hair of the teacher, and the teacher will hit the child and say, get off me, or the teacher will say, I understand how you must be feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So the lack of understanding of another human being's values is a big problem. there are two things that we have to understand in relationships. We've got to know our own core values and our own triggers. ਕਿਹੜੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਤੰਗ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਕਿਹੜੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਖੁਸ਼ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ. We also can share ਕਿ what are your Kam Paji, what are your core values? What are your triggers?
We can do those. But what causes the somebody to strike out?
Right, I'm explaining
physically.
That. So when there's no tolerance, domestic abuse is not just physical; it's emotional.
Yes.
Right. It's mental. It's like, and then it leads to physical as well. There's so many ways that abuse can happen. What sometimes when a man or a woman strikes out to their husband or their wife, or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, it's because they don't have the language to explain how they feel. They've never had a chance to anybody listens to how they feel because nobody can listen. Suniye dukh paap ka nas, sochya sochna hovi sochi lakh baar. We overthink things, sachai or suchapana hunda nahi hai, and therefore when nobody's listening, the suniye dukh paap ka nas can never happen because kadi kisi ne suniya hi nahi alamba. We're very powerful at giving alambe and giving complaints. We're very weak at listening to complaints.
Yeah, we're great at pushing things out. It's your fault.
Yeah,
nothing to do with me. But coming back.
Where have you ever seen in a family someone say, "Can you please tell me how I have upset you? Can you tell me what you'd like me to? What would you like to see more of in Indrajit?"
Do you think though the reason for that is if we know that we've upset somebody, that we're actually afraid of opening those floodgates?
Bilkul.
Because you think, oh my God, I do not know what's going to come back at me.
No.
So you put your guard up and don't ask the question.
Yes.
And don't let the other person talk when you know you're at fault. So look, and again, what I'm trying to understand is this, because I don't know what triggers somebody. I could not strike another human being. Right? Let alone somebody that was a part of me, part of my family. Right? Yes, we've all done something in anger. That's a different thing. We lash out. But I'm talking about systematic, physical abuse of a male or a female partner. Right? And then, so where does it start? And is it acceptable? What should the other party do? So when they've been domestically abused for the first time. And I'm talking about physical abuse.
Yes.
Because you see, the thing about emotional and mental abuse is we're only beginning to understand that just now.
Right.
We never 10 years ago nobody talked about those things.
Yes.
Right? But we've had domestic abuse since man and woman have started coming together, right?
Yes.
So, how is it what's that trigger? And I understand, as you were saying, maybe I don't have the language.
Yes.
Is it frustration with myself? Is it frustration with your partner? What causes a man or a woman to actually lift their hand against somebody that they love?
It's a very deep question, and it's a very powerful question, Kam. I think that we've been seeing extreme abuse in Afghanistan and all that's been happening. Let's see. So the thing is that when there are some people that cannot even tolerate being shouted at.
Yes.
Je koi uchi vi bol jave, if they shout at them, people can have a nervous breakdown. They'll start trembling. They'll start shaking, and you'll think, "Nuki ho gaya." And the inability for another human being to say, "Kam Paji, can you speak softly?" We can't say that because we have no practice of asking for what we want. Sadi awaaz nahi hegi. There are people that have never gotten what they want in their life. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਦੀ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਜੋ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ. So ਜਦੋਂ ਵਿਆਹ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ, ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਕੁੜੀ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਆ from her parents, and ਉਹਦੀ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਤਮੰਨਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੂਰੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ. She's forced to do everything the way the in-laws want her to do it, and she's got no other way.
But I think that's a historical thing, isn't it? Most people these days set up their own home. We live in a very Western style, household. Right? So that's something that's historical.
Right.
But we can't lay the blame of domestic violence on that any longer.
Right.
Right? So today, So my thoughts are that we live in highly pressured environments.
Yes.
Money is always a little bit short. So they
Right.
say that in 85% of relationship problems, there's a shortage of financial income.
Haji.
And that income actually is only about between £400 and £500. So it's not a great deal of money, but it causes stress.
Right.
You know, because
Huge
one
stress.
party may say, "Why did you buy that?" and "Why did you buy that?"
Yes.
And
So,
you didn't.
I think that what I'm hearing from you, Kam, is part of the solution. I think part of the answer is what you're saying. I think that human beings don't like to be blamed for
No.
anything.
Very true.
If you buy a property and the husband says, you know, "Tu choose ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ property, ਕਿਉਂ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ, ਗਲਤੀ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਤੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ," you will find every way to get yourself out of that problem. You know? Therefore, ਲੋਕੀ ਕੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, they'll go to the pundits and the babas and they'll say, ਅਸੀਂ ਨਾ property ਲੈਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਆ, ਲੈ ਲਈਏ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ? So that if they get the yes from the higher pracharaks and preachers, they'll say it's not my fault. You know? We'll do everything to stop blaming ourselves. ਜਦੋਂ domestic violence ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ ਤੇ ਹੱਥ ਚੱਕਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਆ ਕਿਸੇ ਤੇ ਵੀ, it's first of all the other party doesn't understand what's happened. Our inability to explain, ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਚੰਗੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਕਿ ਕਿਉਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੈ, ਹਨਾ? And then being blamed for something is a very serious problem, you know? And if you've been avoiding blame all your life you've been saying ਮੇਰੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਗਲਤੀ, ਮੈਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੁਝ ਕੀਤਾ, well then ਜਦੋਂ problem ਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਆ, the first thing we'll do is we'll cover it up.
Yes.
Or actually even before we cover it up, we'll withhold it up, ਢਿੱਡ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਂਭ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਆ ਉਸ problem ਨੂੰ, ਹਨਾ? ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਜ਼ਾਹਰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ, the partner might say or the family might say, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੱਸਿਆ, ਇਹ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਆ? Oh, because I didn't want to upset anybody, I didn't want to give concern, I didn't want to take the blame. And then when nobody's listening, there's something called amygdala hijack in the brain. There's something called amygdala.
That's right.
ਜਿਹੜਾ amygdala ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹ hijack ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਆ.
What's the function of that
Right.
particular part of
when there's panic,
Yeah.
right, then the amygdala, when the hijack happens, it's almost like a switch on ho janda hai.
Yes.
And then basically we lose our temper, sanu gussa aa janda hai, aur kei vari oh gussa ek ਘੰਟੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਹਫਤੇ, ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਮਹੀਨੇ, ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ longer ਰਹਿ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ.
Can that be controlled?
It can be controlled.
How would somebody, because I know a number of people that are very, we call them hot-headed, bad-tempered,
management problems.
Yeah, anger management problems. There's lots of those, isn't there?
Yes.
Labels attached that we attach.
Yes.
So if somebody's got that issue, that they get angry very quickly at almost anything.
Yes.
How do they go about changing themselves?
So these 5 vices, काम, क्रोध, लोभ, मोह, अहंकार, जेड़ा क्रोध है ना.
So explain those to me in English as well.
Kam is basically the addiction to sex.
Yeah, so these are 5 vices according to Sikhism.
जेड़े 5 वैरी कहने ਆਪਾਂ.
Yes.
है ना? ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਰਨਾ. Kam is your sexual addiction.
Okay, krodh.
Krodh is anger. Kam, krodh, lobh.
Yeah.
Is the greed for more material wealth. Kam, krodh, lobh, moh.
Yeah.
Is the attachment to amira bacha, amira kar.
Yeah.
Ahankar is the
ego.
The ego, the pride ego.
Yeah.
Home. You can't almost like eliminate them, because if you eliminated them,
of course,
there would be nothing left.
Yes.
When you're in a jung or you're in a war, obviously you've got to be angry. You've got to have power.
Well, those things are given to us for a reason.
Yeah. But they should be controlled.
Yes.
If they're out of control, then addictions will start. ਫਿਰ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਾਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ, ਅਸੀਂ alcohol ਪੀਨੇ ਆ.
So how do we control that amygdala from going out of control?
Right.
And us lashing out in domestic violence against our partner or our children? Because we're talking about domestic violence in the family.
Yes.
And then the next thing I want us to move on to
Yes.
is why are we not discussing it?
Very good question. So let's finish this.
Yes, how do we control it? How do we move forward?
The teaching of in Sikhi of the Guru is it's very, very important ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਵਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਵੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਹ ਪੰਜ ਵੈਰੀ ਨੇ.
Yeah, vas is in your control.
Yes. They've got to be in your control.
Yes.
If they're not in your control,
well, then
they will control you.
Yes.
You know, man jeet hai jag jeet.
Yes.
If you don't beat your own mind, you're going to be in trouble.
Conquer the world.
Conquer the world, or
conquer your mind.
Conquer your mind. Conquer the world.
My saying.
Hanji.
I have that on everything now.
That's great.
Yeah, man jeet hai jag jeet.
Man jeet hai jag jeet.
Yes.
Acha. However, man nu jitna or even pachanna bahut aukha hai. It's easy to say, but it's very, very hard to do.
Yeah.
You know, as we all know. Because ਜਦੋਂ trigger ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਇਨਸਾਨ ਹਨਾ you don't even know ਕਿ your amygdala hijack ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ.
No.
You're like in basically you're fighting for your life. You want to be right and you don't want to be blamed. You're going all out, and ਜਦੋਂ ਕ੍ਰੋਧ ਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ, it's hot-headed and you don't even see it. Now what the Guru teaches is ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਵਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਿਆਉਣਾ ਹੈ. So our ability, or in fact ਕਹਿ ਲਓ inability to even sit by ourselves. ਜੇ ਇੰਦਰਜੀਤ ਨੂੰ ਕੱਲਾ ਬੈਠਣਾ ਪੈ ਜਾਵੇ ਏਦਾਂ for 30 seconds, he's going to see ਕਿਹੜੀ ਮੈਂ ਬੁੱਕ ਪੜਾਂ, ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਕੋਈ ਟੈਕਸਟ ਦੇਖਾਂ, ਮੈਂ ਕੁਛ ਮੈਂ ਕੱਲਾ ਬੈਠ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦਾ. ਜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਇਕੱਲੇ ਬੈਠਣ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨਾਲ ਕੋਈ ਰਿਲੇਸ਼ਨਸ਼ਿਪ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਪੱਕੀ ਤਕੜੀ ਮਜ਼ਬੂਤ strong, then we won't even be able to meditate. We won't be able to touch our pulse and say, why am I so hot? What's going on? For a woman, मेरा period आने वाला है, है ना? मेरा cycle आने वाला है, और पता ना होवे ओदे hormones नु की हो रहा है. It's a big problem.
Yes.
So this ability for us to sit with ourselves and be able to control how we feel with our breathing. ਇੱਕ ਸਾਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, one breath. Inhale va, exhale guru. If we can do this properly and we're trained to do this, we can eliminate our migraine, we can eliminate our pain, we can eliminate our anger, we can control many things, but sanu sikhaya nahi kiya.
Beautiful. So I could sit at home tomorrow,
Hanji.
fold my legs, and
you don't
breathe.
have to fold your legs. You
Sorry?
Well, sit on a chair.
Okay. I try and meditate.
Very good.
For between,
you're fit because you can do that. So that's
between 10 and 15 minutes every single morning, and the biggest problem has been trying to quieten my mind.
Okay.
Right?
So we can have a look at that.
Right?
Yeah.
So no, it's great. It happens.
It happens for you. That's great.
It happens. You know, 99%. But it's practice. So what we were saying was.
But many people, unlike yourself, another man nahi tikda even for a millisecond.
But we have to start somewhere, huh?
Yeah, you have to start
somewhere.
somewhere.
Problem here. If you've got domestic violence going on in your household, how can you eliminate it? So what you're basically saying is start to meditate. Start breathing in the morning.
Yeah, even one long breath.
Yes.
Would actually change something, but we actually don't know how to breathe.
It's the strangest thing in the world. So I started doing yoga recently.
Anji.
And of course, a big part of yoga is breathing. And it's more difficult than we realise.
Anji.
And yet, if I told that to a lot of people that I'm learning to breathe properly, they think, what an idiot you are, Kam. We've been breathing since the day we were born.
Yes.
But it's not the right way to do it that empowers us.
Yes.
We're not oxygenating our bodies and our minds and our brains, and we're not letting the air flow through in and out.
We actually don't know how to relax.
No.
Even sutte pe vi assi stressed aa, jaagde vi stressed aa, TV dekhte vi stressed aa. There's basically stiffness and tightness in our body because we never learned how to breathe. Guru kende saas saas simro gobind man antar ki utre jind, that your anxiety could be completely eliminated if you could learn how to breathe.
Amazing. So okay, so let's try and add some value as the modern term for our viewers, Hannah.
Yes.
So in terms of, so if I was going to try and manage my bad temper, anger, and then my fits of domestic violence against my partner,
yes,
what would I do? So tomorrow morning I want to get up and say, Indrajit Baji said that I'm going to meditate for, how long should I try and meditate for? To begin with, as a beginner.
Imagine the 10 long breaths. Like if you inhale va, you say va in your mind, va, and then guru.
Okay.
One breath would last, let's say, 30 seconds.
So Vaheguru, that's great for the Sikhs.
10.
And if you're not,
then Allahu.
So
you can do Allahu.
Whatever.
You can do Hare Krishna. You can do Ram. You can do
in and a longer breath out.
Out, right.
How long should you try and sit for?
So imagine that you do that for 10 vari.
No, but I'm a crazy guy, right? And I'm just starting. So I don't know how to sit for even 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Where do I start from?
Like I said, if you could even do 10 breaths.
Yeah, 10 breaths, not 10 minutes.
10 breaths, just 10 breaths. Sit down, put
10
everything
in
else.
and 10 out?
10 in and 10 out.
10 out. 10. So look, I've done this because like I said, I've recently taken up yoga, absolutely fantastic. And breathing doesn't come easily, and it's not as easy as we actually think it is. Just because we've been doing it since the day we popped out of the womb doesn't mean that we're good at it, right? In fact, if we've been doing it wrong, that means we're getting better and better at doing it wrong. Right?
Yes.
So if you just have 10 breaths that you deeply draw in and 10 out, and if you wish to recite the name of your higher power, whatever it may be, that's fine. You could even count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up to 10 under your breath if you don't feel inclined to do that. And that's really going to relax you, because I've been doing this and it's absolutely incredible.
And if you can start with using your tongue in speaking it, like so that your lips are vibrating. So Vaheguru. Because if you do it silently, Pella, you're going to start thinking.
No, sounds very important, isn't it?
Yes.
If we were sitting here now and we weren't, arm gestures, everything's important, isn't it? So in order to make that sound, you must. But look, you've got to start somewhere. And I think within about 5 to 7 days, you'll feel a difference.
Oh, definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you can't sit on the floor, because I sit cross-legged on the floor, but if you can't do that, sit on a chair, sit on your sofa, lie down.
Yeah.
I did some meditation where they actually encourage you to lay flat on your bed, if that's what you wanted. So whatever relaxes you, right?
So in between, when you're taking your inner breath, so faraz karo, from here, from your nostrils to your dasam dwar or third eye, you're going, and in that moment of that first initial soft, gentle breath, don't do it fast, don't go, because too much oxygen in your brain could give you chakkar.
Yes, you get lightheaded.
You get lightheaded and you get dizzy. So gently, when you come to that level of your inner breath has gone to this point of the dasam dwar, the third eye, and at that point, you can ask for what you want, you can think what you like. You can say, I want to get rid of this upset that I have got with my uncle,
but that's at an advanced level. Let's start by breathing.
All I'm saying is that whatever you want to think, you can do the thinking at that turning point there. Because when
just as the breath starts.
When the breath starts, you go, so now you can think what you like, but once you start the exhale, there's no thinking.
Beautiful.
Then you are listening. Suniye dukh paap ka nas. You are listening to the tun. You're listening to the sacred sound of whoo, the Vaheguru. You're listening to that, and that 20 seconds you're listening to it. You don't think about anything except the tun.
Beautiful.
Right, and then once you finish that, you take your next breath. You can think at that point again. Every time you do the who, you stop thinking.
Beautiful. Okay, so we've done the spiritual side, we've done the reasons.
Yes.
So why is especially our community not talking about it? I understand why a man doesn't come forward.
Yes, about the domestic violence.
About domestic violence, that he doesn't say I've been physically abused. I understand all the ego that goes around that.
Such a great question.
No man wants. Why are we not talking about it?
It's such a great question, and it's so core. It's very important that you brought this up.
Absolutely.
So the thing is, if you look at the bigger picture, when there's dispute and conflict in a family, ਜਦੋਂ ਕਲੇਸ਼ ਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਨਾ ਇੱਕ ਆਦਮੀ ਤੀਮੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ or in a couple, who do you go to ask for advice?
Mm-hmm.
Who do you go to?
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody to go to.
No.
Are you going to go to the Gurdwara and ask the Gyani ji? Are you going to go to the Mandir and ask the Pandit? Are you going to go to the church and ask the priest? Yes, you can. You can. But what are they going to tell you? Sevakar, Patkar,
I was going
Naam
to say,
Japa.
the other thing is that most general people's life isn't that centered around their religion, is it?
No, it's not.
Right? You know, so that doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen.
And even if it did happen, who can you trust?
Nobody.
Nobody. There's nobody you can go to.
Nobody.
So
You're not going to rock up to your mosque or your gurdwara or your church and tell the head priest that my husband is beating me.
No.
Because your husband you attend the same church.
For that reason alone.
There's no confidentiality.
Kampaji, for that reason alone,
Yeah.
I get Christians and I get Muslims and Hindus coming to a Sikh
Yeah.
so that they can share their story and it doesn't get shared in their community.
Well, look, domestic violence doesn't care who you are.
No.
Right? It doesn't care about your religion or your background or your colour or your creed
No.
or even your sex these days.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
Right? So domestic violence in the community,
Yes.
why is the Sikh community not talking about it?
Because of the curse.
Okay.
Sanu kalank keda laga hai? What curse have we been given? Loki ki kahange?
There we go. What will people think?
Loki ki kahange is the biggest problem. Jede karke asi parda rakh liya
So we
hai.
suffer in silence, right?
We've got a veil. Parda kar davo. Nobody should be. Tid na nanga ho jave.
Okay. So then let's put it round the other way.
Right, okay.
So today, I see my Gurdwara and everybody else's Gurdwara as centres of our community. That's the only place where we as Sikhs gather.
Yes.
That's the only sense of community that we have.
Yes.
I don't know about other communities.
Hanji.
Right? But to me, that's the only place that I can go
Yes.
where I know my community gathers.
Yes.
So why are the leaders of these so-called communities, right, not talking about this? Say, listen, if anybody's suffering, we've got a confidential helpline set up.
Right.
There's plenty of money in Gurdwara.
Yes.
Right? If they'd stop spending it on the nonsense that they think that we want it spent on.
Yes.
Because I don't see any help coming into the community
Yes.
to help me with alcoholism, domestic violence, with debt, with dealing with my old age parents. How do I do that?
Yes.
Right? There's none of that coming.
Yes.
So where do I go now? Okay, there's people like yourself. So, but isn't that what the community is for? That we bring up these issues?
Yes. It is. And then not to take anything away from the quality and the provision of services that gurdwaras and churches provide is unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. Because when the maut ho jandi hai, then we go to the gurdwara and say, help us, please.
But that's part and parcel, isn't it, of Sikhi?
Yeah,
Is, you know,
you've got to do the rituals.
Birth, marriages, deaths.
Birth, marriage, death. All the
Right, we do that.
And there are, I mean, I'm wanting to roll out this velocity seek coaching style of coaching where at a help desk 10-15 ਮਿੰਟਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੋਈ ਕਲੇਸ਼ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ a conflict that in 10 or 15 minutes could be turned around from becoming a mountain of mental health, you know, abuse that happens. If 10 or 15 minutes of listening quality coaching could be given, which Sikh coaching can teach other people to do, which could be in every gurdwara. You could have a help desk on a Sunday saying, you've got 10 or 15 minutes to discuss an issue with us. We'll either help you in that 10 or 15 minutes or we'll signpost you to organizations that are doing great work. You know? That facility should be made available, because otherwise the gurdwara is a social club where we go and we go and see each other, have fun, laugh and do our part, do our prayers, do the langar, eat food and go home.
No, eat food that we don't need.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
And that's
let's get it about right.
And
no, what the langar started off was feed hungry. It's now feed.
I think that I want to add to that, Paji. Kampaji, I think that langar is for every human being, whether you're rich or poor. The fact that you are humble enough to sit with each other in one place, without jat paat, with equity, with equality. Je asi kathe beh sakde hain, then langar is not tid bharan waste. langar is to build our humility. ਜਿਹੜੇ 5 core values ਆ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਤ, ਸੰਤੋਖ, ਦਇਆ, ਧਰਮ, ਧੀਰਜ. ਸਤ means ਸੱਚ ਬੋਲਣਾ. ਸਤ ਸੰਤੋਖ is contentment, ਸਬਰ ਹੋਣਾ. ਸਤ ਸੰਤੋਖ, daya is having compassion for ourselves, for others. Dharm is to follow the path of the wiser beings. And then tiraj is to slow down and do things gently and not in panic like that.
Yeah.
Are we okay?
Yeah, absolutely fabulous. So, last but not least, we mentioned langar.
Haji.
Where are you on sitting on the floor or sitting on a chair and table eating your langar?
I think that there are many people that can't. They've had knee replacements, hip replacements. They can't sit on the floor. You know? And if there's a provision for them to sit on a chair and table, that's really great. Obviously, sitting down cross-legged and eating langar with the rest of the sangat in pangat, odi quality hor hegi hai, you know? You're basically.
So should people that are able to sit on the floor sit on the floor, or is so again, you know, 500-600 years ago our religion started.
Yes.
The reason we sat on the floor because there were no chairs.
Right.
Simple.
Yes.
It was where everybody sat at the time.
Hanji, hanji.
Right? Or is it time now? Because obviously we see a combination of tables and chairs and people that sit on the floor in most Gurdwara these days.
Hanji.
Right? So where are you personally on that?
Personally,
because equalising society, you and I are equal because we sat on the same table on the same chair.
Yes.
And so we don't need to be on the floor to be sat equal.
We don't have to be. I think that the ritual of Pangat, sitting on the ground, you know, at your first chakra, on Mother Earth, on the ground, is something very valuable about that. But I think there should be a choice. If somebody is uncomfortable eating, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਸ਼ਾਦਾ ਛਕਣ ਦਾ ਮਜ਼ਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਣਾ if they're in pain. And so they've got to, you know, I think we should give people a choice. One thing that happens in Sikh coaching is that whatever changes human beings decide to make, they choose the change and they own the change. I will never say, Paji, Penji, tusi aa karo, aa na karo, aa karo, because they've had plenty of that from their mata pita.
Beautiful.
माता पिता ने बहुत बारी कहता तू डॉक्टर बनना engineer बनना, like you said in one of your programs. Let them choose what they want to do, what's calling them, you know?
Beautiful, Baji. Time waits for no man. It's the end of a show. Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much.
And look, we only scratched the surface of our topic today. We're going to have Indrajit Baji back in. Tell me what other topics you want us to cover, because he's a very, very learned individual. And it's rare that we get educated individuals that are so knowledgeable on a variety of subjects, of issues that affect us on a daily basis, and that they actually come forward, are willing to share their knowledge with us. So Indrajit Baji is an individual that is so giving of his time. So we will be having more shows with Baji on, and we'll be discussing other issues. What issues would you like to see discussed? It's your show. So thank you so much for watching, and good night, take care, and we'll see you again.